At the end of the day, despite the drizzle spitting against the school's front doors, Timothy purposely missed the bus home. He simply waited in the boys' bathroom until a little after 3 o'clock, when he knew the long line of buses would clear away from the main entrance of the school. He couldn't imagine sitting next to Stuart for the entire ride back to Edge Hill Road. For a while now, their friendship had felt weird. The shape of their history was a puzzle piece that no longer fit the empty space Timothy knew was inside him. It was odd. They both still liked to play video games. They watched the same television shows. Their comic books had become so mixed up over the past few years, it was no longer possible to distinguish which belonged to whom. Together, the boys attended swim team practices 3 nights a week and every other Saturday morning, and their parents had always been close, at least until recently. Everything had changed when Timothy's brother Ben's unit had been sent away. The Chens didn't understand how the Julys could let Ben enlist during such dangerous times. The Julys didn't think it was their neighbor's business. When Timothy asked his brother about his decision, Ben explained that, though he was terrified to go, it was his way of finding a sense of order in all the world's chaos. This was something Ben could do. Find a little light in the darkness, make a decision, accomplish something. It was Ben's way of dealing with his fear, with the uncertainty of war and politics and all those other big ideas that Timothy hadn't yet begun to think about. After Ben went overseas, those words had become like a mantra to Timothy. Find order in chaos, the little light in the darkness. The words were a comfort. They gave him hope. Timothy opened the bathroom door and peered into the hallway. A few footsteps echoed through the now quiet corridors of the school, but he couldn't see anyone. With nothing and no one to stop him, Timothy zipped up his jacket and hiked his book bag high onto his shoulders before making his way toward the school's front entrance and out into the wet afternoon. Paul Revere Middle School was a red brick Victorian monstrosity of a building that sat on the edge of downtown New Starkham, well away from the river and the bridge, past College Ridge, bordered on the east by numerous factories and warehouses. As Timothy pushed his way into the blustering wind up Johnson Street, he could see the silhouettes of the 7 Gothic spires, which marked New Starkham's College, peeking over the hill's horizon. New Starkham students passed Timothy on the sidewalk in small clusters, bundled against the unseasonable chill. They laughed at nothing in particular as they made their way up the street. In a couple of weeks, their final exams would be done. For the college students, graduation happened at the beginning of May. Lucky, thought Timothy. Classes at Paul Revere didn't let out until the end of June. As he turned right onto Edge Hill Road, Timothy shuddered at the realization that only a year ago, Ben had made his own trip across the stage in the high school auditorium to receive his diploma. So much had changed since then. Timothy trudged several blocks along the tree-lined street, continuing up the hill, passing the quiet houses on either side, until he reached the wooded area on the left that dropped away from the road. A battered silver guardrail hugged the sharp curve, the edge part of Edgefield Road. From there, a long covered staircase descended the steep wooded hill to the college's athletic fields at the bottom. At the end of the guardrail, Timothy came upon the entrance to the stairs. The bluffs across the river looked as sullen and cold as Timothy felt, the clouds above darkening in papier-mâché strips. The only color Timothy could see came from inside the stairs' graffiti-colored walls. The staircase had been nicknamed the Dragon Stairs by students and faculty who lived off campus in Timothy's neighborhood. Several years ago, someone had painted an immense Chinese dragon onto one wall, stretching from the bottom stair to the top, where its swirling eyes rolled back into its head as if in the throes of a terrible dream. Timothy thought the dragon was cool, but his eyes were creepy. He felt like he might fall into them and keep falling forever. It was an irrational fear, like in Nightmarys, the way everyday objects can suddenly become anonymous. Stuart teased him about him, pretending to chortle in the dragon's high-pitched voice, telling Timothy, "I'm going to eat you up!" Then they'd laugh about it together, turn up Beechnut's treat, and race home. Now at the top of the stairs, the monster's black and white pinwheel pupils reminded Timothy of the thing that had been watching him from inside the jar back in Mr. Crane's classroom. He suddenly found himself thinking about the new girl, Abigail Tremens, who would be his project partner during the field trip to the museum tomorrow. In his head, Timothy could see Abigail's eyes boring into his own. Only now, instead of brown, they had turned the black and white of the Chinese dragon. "Stay away from me," they growled. Timothy shook his head and turned away. Why had she been so angry, he wondered. Maybe invisible things don't like being seen. Timothy was nearly soaked by the time he reached the front porch of his small gray house. He thought of the last time he walked home alone from school. Last week, when Stuart was at a doctor's appointment, Timothy had found a big black car parked in his driveway. Inside, the men in uniforms had already told his mother about Ben's injuries. Today there was no car. Timothy brushed a drip of water from his forehead. The cough came from the house next door. He didn't even need to look to know that Stuart was watching him. He took a deep breath and turned around, ready to confront his best friend, once more hoping they could just laugh it off the way they usually did. But Stuart was already gone. The slam of the screen door rang out across their shared yard. The Chen's front porch was empty. Unless Stuart had figured out a way to become invisible himself. He wasn't there. Wasn't watching.